I am quite intrigued or spellbound by the frequent observation of a fire, and it looks so black and the life has been removed. And as human beings, we think, oh, this was a catastrophic event. But from the perspective of the plants, it's not catastrophic at all.
I'm standing beside ecologist Jill Johnstone on a bluff above the blue-gray Takhini River, west of Whitehorse. In the distance, mountains rise above the wide valley floor, glazed with the first traces of snow for the season. Below me, in the valley, there are trees, as far as the eye can see.
In many cases, the same individuals, the same genetic individuals that were there simply resprout and regrow, and then new individuals can come in from seed when otherwise they would have had no opportunity.
This forest, like all boreal forest everywhere, has seen fire before. But looking at it now, there's little evidence. The trees, mostly coniferous, spruce, and pine, are full-sized, about 15 meters tall in the Yukon. To the layperson, it's a typical Yukon forest. But to Jill, an expert on the boreal forest, there's meaning behind what we're seeing.
To me, the boreal forest and fire is a story about resilience. And there's actually threads of continuity that stretch into deep time that we can't perceive as humans, but are very much real to the plant community.
That story about how a forest comes back from the dead and how it creates habitat for animals as it goes through this process is what we're exploring today. This is Yukon Wildlife and Wildfire.
In this series, we take a walk in the woods and look at how the forest changes and evolves after wildfire. At every step, we're on the lookout for plants and animals, big and small.
And sometimes we ask passionate researchers and experts to chime in. I'm Karen McCall.
And I'm Carrie McClelland. We're both naturalists with the Yukon Department of Environment's Wildlife Viewing Program. We don't leave home without binoculars and field guides.
This podcast is for everyone who has burning questions about wildlife and wildfire.
That's good. I see what you did there.
Fire's over, but that's only just the start. Just the start.
I feel like here in the Yukon, we're pretty lucky. For most of us, walking in the forest is something we take for granted. I mean, even in Whitehorse, it's easy to get outside and into the trees.
Totally. But I know I'm guilty of kind of just looking at the forest like, oh, it's just another tree, instead of thinking like, how old is this forest? Or when's the last time it burned?
Yeah, I'm more often trying to remember where I put my bear spray or wondering where my dog went. But sometimes I come across a very old log in the forest that's been burned. And I wonder, how long ago did a fire pass through here?
Yeah, once a forest gets to this mature phase where it has fully grown spruce and pine trees, it's not changing very quickly, at least not to our eyes. But the process of going from a fully burnt to the ground forest to a mature forest is called succession.
Dun, dun, dun.
This is how Jill Johnstone describes it.
Succession is an orderly transition of dominance from, usually it refers to vegetation, so from one type of vegetation to another. And there's often a very predictable sequence.
Oh, I've seen Jill's name on papers and news articles about forest fires and ecology for, I don't know, years, decades. It's so awesome that you got to talk to her about this.
I know, she's so knowledgeable.
My name's Jill Johnstone. I'm a plant ecologist, and I specialize in the post-fire dynamics of boreal forests. I have a research associate appointment at the Yukon University in their Yukon Research Center, and then I also am an affiliate research faculty at the University of Alaska in Fairbanks.
Jill talks about fire as resetting the successional clock for the area, which is a cool way of thinking about fire.
Oh, I've definitely been bushwhacking through forests that are in need of a hard reset. Just so much debris has accumulated on the forest floor. No sunlight is getting down there. It just feels clogged, like it needs a good clean out.
Fires do a good job of cleaning out an old forest and letting a new forest start over, which sounds pretty straightforward. But to really understand that process, I'm going to go into the field with Jill. We're going to go back to that burn that you and I visited in our last episode.
The Takhini Bridge fire of 2023.
Yeah, Jill and I visited this burn in 2024, so just 1 year after the fire. Something to keep in mind is that the observations that Jill and I make are quite Yukon-specific. Boreal forests are characterized by short, cool summers and long, cold winters, but conditions are even more extreme in the Yukon than in boreal forests further south.
Yeah, I think you can apply some general principles elsewhere, but you can't take what you see here necessarily and compare it directly to what happens in the boreal forest in Alberta or Northern Ontario.
Exactly. Plants and trees grow slowly here, and we have fewer species as well. A lot of things just aren't tough enough to survive this far north. Nice to see you.
Good to see you too.
So, where are we heading?
We are going to the 2023 burn that is by the Takhini Bridge on the Alaska Highway, about a half hour west.
Great, all right.
Let's go.
Let's do it.
The nice thing about doing the podcast is that I don't have to worry about how I look.
Oh, yeah. Jill leads us up the small access road towards the burn.
So the first thing that we see as we're entering a burned area is usually the edge of a fire has a mixture of burned and unburned trees. And as we move along in, we can start to see more and more of the dead trees. And once we get all the way into a core part of the burn, we will just see black trunks of trees.
Black trunks, indeed. That's all that remains here on first glance. There's no sign of the shrubs or bushes of the understory of the forest we just walked through. That's all been burned away. It also looks like there's nothing growing on the ground at all. It's just dirt. Until we look closer.
We're looking at a little patch of scorched earth here on the ground. In post-fire succession, the first type of set of plants that dominates is actually the fire mosses and liverworts, and they are coming in the very first season after fire.
Okay, so there's some moss here. Quite subtle. In a mature forest or fully grown forest, the ground is covered with several inches of plant material and moss. That's the organic layer. Fires typically burn off that layer, and that exposes the mineral soil below. You can think of the organic layer like an old rug in a house. Pull that up to reveal a hardwood floor below, the mineral layer, also known as dirt. But once exposed, this bare earth offers a fresh palette for plants.
There's a few patches of mosses that have come back in the year after the fire. I see a tuft or two of fireweed, and then here are the little lodgepole pine seedlings. There's quite a number of them. Here's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. And there's a spruce, 7, another spruce, 8. So we've got, in just a square meter, we've got something on the order of 8 to 10 conifer seedlings coming back.
Is that the spruce?
Yeah, that's the spruce with the shorter needles. The lodgepole look a little scraggly and weird, like tiny eccentric pom-poms, but that's their first year of growth.
This scorched earth already has a lot going on, but it would be easy to overlook. Crouching down, I see the mosses, plants, and mini trees as Jill points them out. I take a photo of Jill pointing to a lodgepole pine seedling. When I look back at it on my computer later, I can't even see the seedling without zooming in. It's only about an inch high.
It'll be a couple of years, maybe 3 years, 4 years before they start to produce any branches and start to really look like something you could imagine is going to be a tree.
We only have one species of pine tree in the Yukon, lodgepole pine. That's why it's easier to be a naturalist in the north than other places. There's less names to learn. But if you did need to identify a lodgepole pine, its needles grow in bundles of 2. What else do you see resprouting here?
Well, there's quite a number of species that you would find in the typical understory of the forest that have been able to resprout.
Jill says many of the first plants to grow back post-fire were present when the site burned and are regrowing from parts of the plant that survived below ground.
I'm seeing some Twinflower, which is a ground shrub that's really common in the forest. The early growth of fireweed is usually a resprout plant from a plant that's been growing in the understory and not producing flowers, but then once it resprouts and grows in the burned forest, it can produce abundant flowers.
Fireweed may be present in a mature forest, but without access to the sun, it won't flower. There's got to be a metaphor in there somewhere. This aptly named plant is the Yukon's territorial flower. A charred forest full of its brilliant fuchsia flowers is stunning.
There's a whole bunch of sedges that are little grass-like plants that we don't really notice in the forest understory, but they are resprouting very effectively, and they will form a dominant cover. All of these resprouts really help prevent soil erosion, and they create vegetation that wildlife can use really quickly.
These plants that grow back quickly after fire are known as pioneer species. They will dominate the burn for the first few years post-fire. Are there seeds that blow in or that are get pooped out by animals, that sort of thing?
Yes. So right where we're standing in the year after fire, we might see maybe 10 different plant species, but that diversity is going to increase over the next several years as things like animals are bringing in seed, birds and mammals, as well as during the winter, a lot of these plants will shed seed, and that'll blow in.
This early stage forest attracts animals that love grazing on these little nutrient-rich plants, like elk, deer, meadow voles, and all the animals that eat those animals. But change is inevitable in the forest, and the little plant, or herbaceous stage, is ephemeral. Pretty soon, bigger plants overtake them. Jill stops beside a huge willow with multiple large burned stems growing up from the base. It looks dead, but dozens of new stems are sprouting up.
How old is this individual? You can easily imagine that it has successfully grown, been killed by a fire, resprouted again and again and again. Like that whole mythology of the phoenix rising from the ashes is very true for these species that can regenerate from these underground plant parts. And it is conceivable that this individual established in this location thousands of years ago and is just continuing along, which I find really remarkable.
That is remarkable, and something I'll try to appreciate the next time I'm bush bashing through head-high willow, which one might be doing in this forest several years down the road, when this willow and its kin fill out the understory. In 10 years, this burn will look very different.
And so we move from an herbaceous phase into a shrub-dominated stage, and a lot of willows and maybe some alder or evergreen shrubs if you're in a cooler part of the landscape.
In the shrub-dominated phase of the forest, berry bushes and willows shine. Unlike the lonely lodgepole pine tree, there are more than 40 species of willow, and they're diverse. Some are less than 10 centimeters tall, while the Scowler's willow grows up to 9 meters. When a forest reaches this bushy phase, it will attract animals that like to eat and take shelter in shrubby habitats, like the almighty moose, who can eat 19 kilograms of food a day, about 40 pounds.
By far their favorite food is willow. And then beyond that, they will eat other tree species, so birch, aspen, and kind of these earlier successional species that we do find in burns.
My colleague Tyler Ross knows moose. He's an ungulate biologist with the Yukon Department of Environment. He says in the spring and summer, moose target the fresh buds and leaves.
Those are by far the most important in terms of nutrition. They contain lots of minerals, calcium, potassium, magnesium, all those important things. And they're high in protein as well. Then when the fall and winter come, obviously those leaves drop off, and so then they're switching to eating the woody stems of those plants.
It makes sense then that moose would favor areas with lots of shrubs and young trees, but moose habitat actually varies quite a bit by the season. Tyler says in the spring and summer, they're often found close to water as they also eat aquatic plants. Fun fact, moose can dive underwater to pull up pond weeds. After mating season in September and October, Tyler says these long-legged animals often move up to the subalpine where shrubs are abundant and predators are fewer. Wolves are the main predator of moose in the Yukon. It's fairly common to see wolf tracks in the mud or snow, but spotting this elusive canine is much harder. By November, when Tyler and colleagues are doing aerial surveys, he says they typically spot the greatest number of moose in wildfire burns.
Usually within the 10 to 15 years old, like that's the sweet spot in terms of where we kind of find the moose. And again, that's because you're seeing lots of these shrub species in those areas where they like to concentrate and feed.
But as Tyler says, there's no guarantees in nature.
Not every burn is the same. And so while generally burns are great habitat for moose and these other ungulates, there are often cases where a forest will burn, then all of the trees get blown down, and you have just this cacophony of kind of blowdown, and it makes for really difficult travel. And so actually those burns, which could be the same age as, say, like one that provides great habitat, you'll find virtually nothing in there just because the travel is so difficult and there hasn't been a great opportunity for vegetation to grow in those areas as well.
I've tried to hike through forests like that. I don't recommend. Another animal, though, that might make its way into a recent burn is a black bear. These opportunistic foragers are mostly vegetarian and have a hugely varied diet, but also have some staple foods. In the spring, they predominantly eat green plants and grasses, like one might see in a fresh burn. In the fall, their main source is berries, like one might see in a shrubbier forest. Bears can throw back thousands of berries in a single feeding. In the Yukon, a bear favorite is soapberry, which I've heard called buffalo berry in other places, or Shepherdea canadensis if you want to get technical. This medium-sized shrub offers good value for bears because it's often densely packed with red berries. Here's another colleague, Tom Jung, senior wildlife biologist with the Yukon Department of Environment.
Absolutely. You'll start seeing bears move into burns, sometimes right away, because they'll be following species like elk and things in areas where they overlap, but also they very much will eat lots of things, as we know of bears. So they're attracted to the graminoids, the grasses, but as it gets shrubbier and we start getting shrubs that produce berries, like soapberries, they absolutely will gorge on those a little more in the fall, but definitely bears will move in as the forest gets a little bit older, and also as the forest gets a little bit older after the fire. It's not just the berries, but some of the trees start to fall down, start to decay, and bears will come in and they'll eat things like ants and other insects and larvae that they find in dead wood. So there's a variety of food sources for bears in that intermediate stage of a forest regenerating.
It's understandable why bears are such flexible eaters. They have just 6 months to eat enough calories to get them through their long winter slumber. Their habitat is also varied. They live in both coniferous and deciduous forests, but do a lot of their feeding in open areas like meadows and burns.
Oh, yeah.
In about 20 years, the 2023 Takhini Bridge burn will transition again as it takes on the characteristics of an aspen forest. Back in the burn with Jill Johnstone, there are already clues to that.
Okay. So we're approaching the aspen stand, and we're still about 5 meters away from these aspen trees, but you can just see all the stems that have come up. These are all young aspen that have resprouted from underground roots.
These underground roots allow aspen to grow back much quicker than pine and spruce trees that have to grow up from seed. This is aspen's superpower for regenerating after fire.
Can you smell that?
I can't, but I was recently sick, and I feel like I haven't regained my full sense of smell.
There's sort of a sweet sense with a little bit of putrefaction in there, and it's the aspen leaves. They are so packed full of sugars that as they decompose, they almost ferment. If you walk through these stands just after the leaves have fallen, you can smell it. It almost smells a bit like a sewer or something because the decomposition is happening so rapidly.
Oh, de sewer. Jill picks up a leaf bigger than her palm. Oh, these are the aspen leaves of the suckers.
Yeah.
They're massive.
If you look at one of these leaves, it's probably about 5 times bigger than the typical leaf that you'd see on a mature tree.
Jill says these little suckers are drawing on all the stored sugar of a larger tree, acting as photosynthesis machines. And the leaves aren't the only supersized parts of these trees. These 1-year-olds are already chest high on me.
These suckers can grow very rapidly. We're standing next to one that's already kind of 1.5 meters tall, and there's a lot of them. That's just a single year of growth. So normally, if an aspen started from seed, it would probably take 3 to 5 years to reach a similar height. So it's a tremendous advantage to be able to grow back from these roots.
So comparing that to the lodgepole pine, which is like 1 inch tall, not even, and then these aspen shoots, it's amazing. When these aspen eventually get to be full size, they will remain the big kid on campus for a couple of decades, until about 40 years post-fire. Then, just like the plants and the grasses and the shrubs and the willows before them, aspen too will be outgrown, either by pine trees or spruce trees or both. These coniferous trees are much slower growing but will catch up eventually. And they cut the aspen off from the sun, which signals the curtain call for leafy trees. Spruce are considered a climax species in the boreal forest. Once established, a spruce forest will endure indefinitely until the forest burns again or another major disturbance takes them out, like a flood or widespread disease. That should be at least a few decades away, though, for this forest.
Squish, squish, squish. Yeah. I'm trying to walk on what's left of the vegetation.
On our way out, Jill and I carefully pick our path around a few greasy sections of soft mud that has thawed in the fall sun. Oh, I'm glad there wasn't snow on the ground.
Yeah.
She bends to pick up a leaf below a mature aspen tree. It's a fraction of the size of the ones produced by the saplings.
Yeah, like, you remember that aspen leaf we picked up?
Yeah.
Compared to this?
Yeah.
Yeah, just phenomenal.
Back at the office, I regale Carrie with stories of all the things Jill showed me. I loved seeing the difference between the aspen trees and the spruce trees. The spruce and the pine trees were like itty-bitty, like 1 inch tall, and then the aspen trees were 1.5 meters tall. So the difference was like the aspen were on steroids. And the leaves, too, of a new aspen are like huge compared to the leaves of like a mature aspen tree. Just seeing those differences was really incredible.
That's really neat. And I'm so jealous you got to go out there with Jill Johnstone.
Yeah, it's really cool seeing Succession in action. Like, we learn about Succession in school and how the forest changes, but to actually go and have boots on the ground and see what's growing back is much different.
Did Jill have any tips or takeaways from your time together?
She said you can approach burns like a detective. So look at what was growing before there was a forest fire to predict what plants are going to grow back.
Okay, wait. So she's saying look at the corpses of the trees and presume that that is what will grow back.
More or less. Of course, there are a lot of factors like the nature of the fire. So how hot did the fire burn? If it was a really hot fire, then it might have killed a lot of the roots in the ground, which means that things couldn't grow back from roots. They'd have to rely on being transported in by seed, which would change what's able to grow and when.
All right, I understand.
The cool thing, though, about the Takhini Bridge fire burn is that it's so close to Whitehorse that it's a place that we can go back to every year and just see how it's changing.
Oh, yeah, we definitely go back to a fire in the first few years because that growth is so dramatic. We should do like a wildlife viewing public walk there.
Absolutely, we should.
Okay, so where to next?
Next episode, we're going to go to the Fox Lake burn of 1998.
I love the fox-like burn. When I first arrived in the Yukon, it was just a sea of purple and pink fireweed. And I love driving that section of the highway because you can see such dramatic changes in the forest.
Yeah, I'm stoked too. Get it?
Oh, I'm like a fire. Oh, okay. Thank you for that. That's great.
This podcast was produced by the Yukon Department of Environment's Wildlife Viewing Program. Mixing and sound design was by Mark Kepke. Our theme music, White Bark Pine, was written and produced in the Yukon by Dana Jenajon and performed in collaboration with the Bennett Sun.
Fire's over, but that's only just the start.
There are no white bark pines in the Yukon, but you already knew that. This song was inspired by the white bark pine that survived the 2013 Rim Fire in Yosemite National Park, California. To learn more about wildlife in the Yukon, go to yukon.ca/wildlife viewing. You can download guides, posters, and resources and find out about free walks and talks. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and share it with everyone you know who appreciates wildlife. Thanks for listening. See you on the trails.
For my home. With its cheek against the sky, upon the mountain spine.